tribal, tribal, tribal,
Now me, tribal, tribal, tribal,
tribal, tribal,
tribal, tribal,
faction, faction, faction,
faction, faction, faction,
clash, clash, clash,
now me, clash, clash, clash,
rule,
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 animosity, animosity, animosity,
animosity, animosity, animosity, animosity, animosity, animosity,
animosity,
animosity,
animosity,
animosity. Again, we have O, pronounce A. Animosity, animosity, animosity. And also T pronounce something like D, maybe more D than T. There is a sign behind of T here. Animosity, animosity. This is an not ani, but an, an. It is a sound schwa. An, and the accent. We have accent on third syllable. Masity, again schwa here, animosity. Vowels. First here, these vowels and these vowels we pronounce and this T we pronounce more D than T. First A we pronounce more E than A, and it's O, and O, this O we pronounce A, long stretch A. Animosity, 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 animosity,
divide, 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 divide,
divide, divide, divide, divide, divide. This combination A and big E, I, wide, divide, divide. Accent is on the second syllable.
systematic, systematic, systematic,
systematic, systematic, systematic, systematic,
systematic, systematic,
systematic, systematic, systematic, systematic,
systematic, systematic,
systematic, systematic, systematic, systematically, 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 systematic, 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 systematically, 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 systematic, systematic. There is a word what I like, what I pronounce at first, but there is a word what I must pronounce 100 times and never correct, but in the end correct. For example, apartheid, 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 apartheid. Good.
classified, classified, classified,
Classified, classified, classified, classified,
classified, classified, classified,
classified, classified,
classified, classified,
classified, classified, classified, classified, classified, classified, classified, classified,
various, various,
various, various, various,
various,
various. Here is a clear A. Pronounce A. A. We pronounce here clear A. Various, various,
differ, differ, differ,
differ, differ, differ,
privilege,
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 privilege, privilege,
privilege,
privilege, privilege,
privilege,
privilege, privilege,
privilege,
privilege, privilege,
privilege,
privilege, privilege. Long before apartheid existed, these tribal factions clashed and warred with one another. Then white rule used that animosity to divide and conquer. All non-whites were systematically classified into various groups and subgroups. Then these groups were given differing levels of rights and privileges in order to keep them at odds.
Part 1. The genius of apartheid was convincing people who were the overwhelming majority to turn on each other. Apartheid is what it was. You separate people into groups and make them hate one another, so you can run them all. At the time, black South Africans outnumbered white South Africans nearly 5-1, yet they were divided into different tribes with different languages. Zulu, Xhosa, Tswana, Sotho, Venda, Ndebele, Tsonga, Pedi, and more. Long before apartheid existed, these tribal factions clashed and warred with one another. Then, white rule used that animosity to divide and conquer. Those tribes and other non-whites were systematically classified into various groups and subgroups. Then these groups were given different levels of rights and privileges in order to keep them at odds.
The genius of apartheid was convincing people who were the overwhelming majority to turn on each other. Apartheid is what it was. You separate people into groups and make them hate one another so you can run them all. At the time, black South Africans outnumbered white South Africans nearly 5-1. Yet we were divided into different tribes with different languages: Zulu, Xhosa, Tswana, Sotho, Venda, Ndebele, Tsonga, Pedi, and more. Long before apartheid existed, these tribal factions clashed and warred with one another. Then white rule used that animosity to divide and conquer. All non-whites were systematically classified into various groups and subgroups. Then these groups were given differing levels of rights and privileges in order to keep them at odds.